Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope we're still online because the lights actually blinked out here a second before we went live. That was crazy. Never happened before. So anyway, hope you guys are still there. So welcome, welcome, welcome. It's Speedify Office Hours on Speedify Live. This is the live stream about live streaming, and today in particular, it is the live stream about Speedify itself. This is our app that lets you combine multiple internet connections in order to get faster, more reliable internet. We're live. Any questions you post, we will see. So let's go to get Mike Kane and start talking about Speedify. All right. Apparently we're still online. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, I'm great, Alex. How are you today?
That was terrifying. Like just as we went live, the lights went out. I was sitting in the dark for a second, and they came back on. Somehow we're still here.
That's nice.
So I have all the routers and Ethernet switches on battery. I do not have the Mac Mini or the lights in here on a battery backup, which suddenly seems like a great idea. It's come up before, but what are the odds of a blackout in the middle of the live stream, right?
Did the Mac turn off as well?
It didn't.
Too fast.
Which is interesting. All right. Yeah. So someone else in the office says that their monitor went out and a bunch of alarms reset. Oops. All right. So I think we should just move right on to talk about what's new in Speedify 13.1 because we just had a new launch.
Yes.
And you want to talk about that a little bit? What changed here?
Yes, so great. Yes, so Speedify 13.1 went live for some users on Friday and the majority of Apple users on Monday. So we'll start with Apple because that's one of my favorite platforms. So the big improvements on Apple, we upgraded our whole purchasing store kit to Apple's modern API. So it's much smoother experience. So if you're using your Mac and your iPhone devices and you purchase on one or the other, you're going to see that instant pop up on your additional devices saying you have a Speedify license. It's very seamless, fantastic stuff. We made some little styling improvements. We noticed, some people in, Germany and other languages, some of the styles were a little off based on some of the translated strings. So we fixed that a little bit. We noticed that. We heard your complaints. We fixed some of the icon changes.
Actually,
yeah.
Interestingly, none of the Germans complained. I just did some calls with some people whose computers were in German, and when they shared the screen, I was like, Speedify looks awful on your computer. Right? The icons aren't lined up, the text goes off the end, and they're like, yeah, German, what are you going to do? I was like, we can fix that. So it came from me seeing their screens, although I guess they're used to it when your language is 30% longer than any other language on earth. And you're just used to things sticking off the end of the screen.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, hopefully that helps a lot of users if you are experiencing it as well. More importantly, we have some performance fixes. So, we had some internal fixes, which finds latency a little bit faster, deals with packets a little bit better, which means your jitter overall is a little bit better. So, those using Speedify 13.1 might notice some subtle improvements, and maybe others might see some bigger improvements. So we also noticed that Google wants, users to ask, users as developers. Google wants developers to ask for permissions a little bit differently on Android 13. So in Speedify 13.1, we comply with that a little bit more. So yeah, and if you're on a Speedify for Teams account, you'll notice that, some of your settings might have stayed before if you're logging out. Now, if you're switching users, those settings will reset. So big updates to 13.1. Really happy with it. So if you haven't got it, users, please go out and get that.
All right. So basically, redid it to use the new Android permissions, redid it to use the new Apple store stuff. I mean, it very much reminds me of what the Red Queen said, right? My dear, here we must run twice as fast as we can just to stay in place. And if you wish to go anywhere, you must run twice as fast as that. That's what it feels like being an app developer these days, right? I mean, we're constantly having to rewrite things just to work with the newest OS.
Yes.
I mean, I guess that's just life for everyone. I don't know what to do.
And if you want to stay ahead of the game and be modern and be compliant and give users the best experience, we better write twice as fast.
Exactly. All right. So Fryoshi is saying some things here. Mm-hmm. Just sometimes internet is slow and needs to restart Speedify or change servers. It depends. Sometimes changing server doesn't help and needs a restart. Oh, yes, I'm on Arch Linux. Always forget to say it. Oh, also, in my user interface, Speedify has 2 connections A-lined and 1 not. XD. All right. Well, so we'd be interested in seeing logs, particularly if you can, if you see Speedify get really slow and you reconnect and then it's fast, send some logs. We'd be interested in seeing what's going on. If it's anything we can see, not just your internet getting slow, but maybe it's something on our servers. Maybe it's, I don't know what it is. So we'd like to see logs. Not quite sure what you mean about in your UI about the 2 connections. Do you know what he means?
No. Maybe there's like
as in the icons.
Oh.
Not being in a straight column. If so, that's the styling changes that Mike was talking about.
Yeah, please.
It's just that the one icon is sort of over. Mm-hmm. We fixed that. Timed update. All right. Also, it is the Ides of March. Woo! So 1,979 days since Julius Caesar was assassinated. I don't know what that's supposed to mean to any of us.
It's good to remember our history so we don't repeat.
Yeah, but I don't even remember. Was he? Are we supposed to be sad he was assassinated? Glad? I don't know.
You be the judge, audience. You be the judge.
Yeah. So if anyone knows anything about Roman history out there, let us know. How are we supposed to feel about the Ides of March?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you were talking about the connection name not being aligned. Yeah, both the names and the icons, just things in that connection row could get off alignment. And I think we got that all fixed up. I've not updated in a week. A week? You are so far out of date. Seriously, yeah. Yeah, it's probably a good idea to update now. You know, new release this weekend. It's all good. All right. I think we have a question in the mailbag. Should we go to the mailbag? Yes, let's go.
All right.
Oh, but first we have a question. Oh, wait. First we have a question from Emulent Abundance. What's the oldest version of Speedify out there? We generally support releases of Speedify for 2 years, and then they stop working by design. There's security fixes and things that go in there, and if we find something really serious, we may kill things that are less than 2 years old. In general, you don't have to update to every release every single time, but you cannot not do updates. If you want to stay a couple months behind, that's okay. But at 2 years old, we chop it. I do not remember off the top of my head what 2 years old takes you to, whether it's 10.7 or 11.1. But yeah. Oop. No, I don't think this is a great time to update my Cam Studio software. Thanks for asking, though. So it's a combination. Yeah, it absolutely is security reasons. So our encryption, for example, is not something we rolled ourselves. We take the boring SSL engine right out of the Chrome browser. So the same engine Chrome uses, so Google has security experts review it all the time. They give out cash prizes if anyone finds a bug in it. And if they fix a bug, we just grab that, put it in the next version of Speedify. Just in general, you want to keep up to date, and then none of us have to worry about which bug got fixed when. There's so many dependencies. There are bugs. All right. Is the 32-bit version going to stop working? Do you know when we stopped support? So 32-bit Windows, is that what you're saying? Yeah, at some point it will, is the answer. I mean, these things are getting harder and harder to develop. Someone was, asking me for help getting it working on Windows 8.1 this morning. No, I can't help you. It not only passed end of life, it passed the extended end of life, right? Microsoft won't take your money anymore. There are no security fixes. Microsoft's just abandoning 32-bit. They're abandoning, stuff that hasn't been made for 10 years is going away. Yeah, I just refuse to update. It works as is my version from early 2022. All right, be okay for a while. I can talk to people about that. Ebullient abundance, always peculiar. All right. RB, what's the difference between 32-bit and 64-bit? It is the size of the smallest block of memory that the CPU will move around. And the total amount of memory that the computer can handle is 2 to the 32 or 2 to the 64-bit. So the answer is modern computers now are 64-bit. For years, through the 80s, 80s we had 16-bit computers still. But all through the 90s and the 2000s, computers were 32-bit, right? They could handle numbers up to 2 billion. But now everything is 64-bit, and code needs to be recompiled for that. And it lets it handle much bigger numbers. It lets it move big blocks of memory faster. So the code is faster. A lot of things sort of happen in parallel depending on what you're doing. So other than the fact that 64-bit computers need more memory, they're better. And memory has gotten relatively cheap. And so the industry has moved to 64-bit, and there really isn't much moving back. Raspberry Pis are funny. I think, did they finally move to a 64-bit OS? I think last time I looked, there was an option you could choose to run 32 or 64-bit. It's a 64-bit processor, but for a long time, they just ran it in 32 bits anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I think even the Raspberry Pi is now 64-bit. Yeah, 32-bit is going away. That's interesting. I was always confused when a computer had both versions of an app. Yes. Yeah, and so most of the computers can actually run both, or rather 64-bit computers can make themselves run 32-bit programs, but not vice versa. So, all right, so let's see that mailbag question again. Well, go ahead and interrupt again. If you guys have questions, you just post them in the comments and we will answer them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I just installed Speedify and cannot get it to start working. Oh no. It keeps saying that it cannot connect to a server or check my firewall settings. I checked my firewall and everything is fine. What is wrong? I use Norton 360 and Smart Firewall. Thanks. Mike?
Yes, so, antivirus programs are a huge problem for VPNs. They mostly block some of the WebSockets that we need to talk. Once you disable or whitelist Speedify in your antivirus program, it should work as normal.
Okay. Yeah. The antivirus programs often step in and do things. So the user interface of Speedify is actually a separate program from the VPN for security reasons. That's what Microsoft says you should do, because the VPN has to run with permission to touch every packet. And you do not want a program that can touch every packet on your system to have files dragged onto it. Microsoft says don't do it. So we have two separate programs. The user interface you see is running as you, and the daemon in the background is running as administrator. And so it's actually a network connection between them. So an antivirus or firewall can come in and say these two programs can't talk to each other. And we're stuck. Sort of horrible. All right. 2.14 trillion on 64-bit. I think it's higher than that. It's 2 billion times 2 billion, right? Right. So 32-bit is like 2 billion. 64-bit is 2 billion times 2 billion, which I think is significantly more than a couple trillion. So yeah, 64-bit's pretty big. And IPv6 now has 128-bit addresses. So 2 billion times 2 billion times 2 billion times 2 billion. They say they could give an IP address to every grain of sand, to give you a sense. All right. Will we be able to resize the UI to a smaller size? Is it planned? I would like to keep only the connection graph. Oh, we talked about what happened with that.
We allow, users to resize their screen pretty small, especially for like the little pie screens. But But it sounds like
Yeah,
you just
on
like
Linux, I think we do. Yeah, on Windows, we stop you at some point. I know
in
that.
Mac. Yes.
But I thought that on Linux, we let you squish it pretty darn small.
Yeah. That should
Tell us if
connect.
you can't. We can try too. Yeah, we put in some work not so long ago, making it look good at smaller and smaller sizes. Might be a silly question, but why are firewalls such a problem? Firewalls are such a problem because they are in a game against bad guys, right? They can't come up with a bunch of simple rules on what's allowed. If the program's named Speedify, let it work, because then the bad guys would just name their virus as Speedify. So they're constantly playing games trying to spot the bad programs and block them without following a pattern that others can see. And it's, nearly hopeless. Sorry.
It's true.
All right, Fryoshi, IPv6. I would love that on Speedify. I know it won't happen soon. So yeah, the Speedify software supports IPv6 and has supported IPv6 for years.
Mhm.
They're just strange issues trying to get, and Brian Pradell, when we've had him on, he's talked about this. The difficulty in, there's billions upon billions upon billions upon billions of IP addresses, but getting the hosting provider to give one of our servers 10,000. Like, we thought you'd only want 3 or 4. Like, there's an infinite number. Just give us a few million per server. What do we care? And he's in the audience. Yep, still my fault. So it's difficulty. The hosting, it's strangely, a lot of this stuff is not standardized, and the hosting providers don't provide it. Some of them give your computers each a couple IPs. Some give you an API you can call to ask for a bunch of IPs, and it's just not the same. I don't know. It is surprisingly weird. All right. Can IP addresses be thrown away as easily as they are created? I feel like they're similar to license plates. Good question, Abulant. Under IPv4, which is what the internet today, the internet since 1981, when IP was standardized, is based on 32-bit IP addresses. There are only 2 billion computers allowed on the internet. Those addresses, you cannot throw them away. You must be careful. You must treasure them. There's more than 2 billion computers that want to go on the internet. If you throw it away, someone will take it and you'll never get it back, right? I mean, there are bidding wars for IP addresses and stuff. It's kind of bad, frankly. In IPv6, with 2 billion times 2 billion times 2 billion times 2 billion IP addresses, you can just throw them away. They don't matter at all. In fact, computers will often, get on the internet and get 10 IP addresses. Right? You can just be careless. You can just be careless with IP addresses under IPv6. You can, never use the same IP address twice. Whatever there's no shortage. There's a lot less grains of sand on the planet Earth than there are IPv6 IP addresses. So yeah, go to town. You want new addresses, you can have them. So, all right, Brian Pradell being smart with all the fun stuff. All right. What's she saying? Dang. I wanted my Motorola Race IP address to be a hot commodity.
Damn, you can.
Now it is.
I think the flip phones are back, so maybe you get that.
Anytime I think of my Razor, of course, back in the day when everyone had a Razor, I had a Razor, my flip phone. One day I flip it open and it says your service has been cut off because for non-payment. Like, oh God, I forget to pay my bill. I run around, my bill's been paid, the check's been cashed, right? Back in the days of checks and stuff. And so I finally call AT&T. I'm like, why have I been cut off for non-service? And I'm like, sir, your phone is a computer. Have you tried rebooting it? So I rebooted, it comes up and works. I'm like, Welcome to the future. Everything's a computer and it's all garbage now. Telephones used to work.
Mm-hmm.
Now they need to be rebooted. But all right. The new flip phones are scary. I don't want to keep folding the screen. Yeah. I mean, the screen folds. I just don't see how those phones are going to last. I mean, I know they've got this flexible glass technology and stuff, but seriously?
They want you to buy the insurance.
Yeah. I don't know. Those phones seem terrifying.
Yeah.
So until Apple makes one, then both of us will be like, "Oh my god,
It'll be
folding
legendary.
phone, so innovative." Yeah. I know what I do.
We're all guilty of it.
The insurance is a scam. My insurance would only fix my screen once. That
You gotta get
is
the
a
Apple Care
scam.
Plus. Then you can get it fixed as many times as you want.
Yep. Bought that for my son, and then he dropped it in the Potomac.
Right? Oh, don't you need it though?
And there was an article, I forwarded it to him. Some kid a week ago dropped his phone in the Potomac, same river, and a diver found it, brought it back, and it worked.
All right.
So I suggested maybe we could go diving and get his phone back. Who knows? It's only been 3 months. Horrific. My life. All right. So what other streams do we have coming up? March 21st. I guess that's next Tuesday. We're going to have Dan Rosehill, the marketing communications guru, who can tell us about, promoting emerging tech. And then, of course, next week we'll be back, and I think it's Kevin next week, right?
Yep.
So we'll do this again in a week. Did he drop it in the 6-foot range? I think he might have. Right. So these phones, they're IP67, right? So it's an actual spec, right? So I think it's that they guarantee that if you put it under 1 meter of water for 1 hour, it will be perfectly fine after you take it out. But if it goes deeper than that, maybe it's 2 meters. She says 6 feet, so I don't have the spec memorized. Maybe it's 6 feet of water, 6 feet of clean water for 1 hour, right? And then there's an IP77 where it can stay under for a full 24 hours, right? There are different levels, but that's sort of the standard. I think it is 6 feet for an hour, and then they get to say it's waterproof. But it's not unlimited waterproof. You can, And my Apple Watch, I noticed when I got it, there's a sign about how out of the box this watch is waterproof.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get the slightest ding in it, it will no longer be water. Like the slightest bend in it, that would stop it. So you might want to be a little bit careful. So I've never taken it in the water. I'm a little too terrified. All right, folks. Any more questions? Yes, like a car coming off the lot. Speaking of cars coming off the lot, so I grew up in a very nice town on Long Island, and there has been a massive rash of stolen Mercedes Benzes in town. One weekend, most of the new Mercedes in town got stolen in this. I don't know how many cars it was. Apparently, it was a lot. Nice neighborhood, right? You know what it turned out? Turns out the new Mercedes, when you lock the doors, the mirrors fold in because you're parked. So your mirror doesn't get clipped while you're parked. Mm-hmm. People felt so comfortable in town that they would just leave their key on the dashboard. So all thieves had to do was drive around looking for Mercedes with their mirrors out. And then they'd run in, jump in, drive off.
Wow. All right.
And they got away with so many cars. Luckily the Gizis family's 10-year-old Fords went nowhere. The thieves weren't interested. But
That's
so that's my car thievery story. I know someone who stored car keys in their garage. Wow. It's a lot better than storing them in the car. Big step up on the old security meter.
Oh man.
All right. What else? So what's coming in Speedify 3.2?
So it seems like we're gonna
13.2. Sorry.
Well, yeah, 13.2. So we're on track right now to have the Speedify bypass feature overhauled and give you a much better experience. Speedify will work with tons more websites, more apps, things like that. Really excited to get that tested and get it out to you guys for 13.2.
Again, that's really your code, right? You've been working on that for a couple weeks now, right?
Yeah, we're pretty excited. Yeah, it's a fresh interface. You can search through all of the domains that might be blocking you. You're going to be alerted. It's going to be really, really nice. It's going to be give you so much more reasons to keep Speedify on and stay protected 24/7.
Yeah. So a lot of other VPNs do this thing that for a second looks cool, right? That traffic to sites that block VPNs, they'll make it work by proxying it through someone's house.
Yeah.
And for a second I was like, oh, that's really cool. We should do that. But Brian Purdell had a really good point about the security of that.
Mhm.
You were worried about people seeing your traffic, so you routed it through the house of someone you didn't know, where it then went out on their internet unencrypted. Like, where is the security win here? So, all right, who's on to the next version? We have to complain about the last one first. yeah. So we're working hard.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fryoshi. Well, mostly Mike's working hard.
Keep us on.
Kevin too.
Yeah, we do, definitely. All of us.
I'm just talking about working hard. It's it's exhausting. No one appreciates how hard my life is.
Well, I mean, Alex, you find the problem as soon as one word from Alex, you got 10 guys ready to tackle it. It's a good progress. It's a good scenario.
Actually, we didn't mention it. Might as well fess up. A lot less memory usage on the Mac.
Yes.
Recent versions were grabbing more memory than they probably should have. So we trimmed that down an awful lot. And it seems much better. Mm-hmm. There's probably room for another improvement, but
always.
Yeah, there always is. Why does it use 100 megs? Why does it use 50 megs? Why does it still use 10 megs? 1 meg? Why so much?
Right.
Yeah, no matter how you go, someone will want less. All right, well, it seems like we answered everyone's questions because we are so awesome at customer support. And so maybe this is the end. We're at 2:30. We did this for half an hour. Thank you, everybody. This was fun. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for Brian Purdell jumping in, taking the blame for IPv6. All right. Good night, everybody. I'll see you all online.